I never wanted to rely on other people. I can do everything by myself. I don't need anyone else, which is not true. This is how I describe the feeling of being burned out at the worst moment. You're lying down, something is lying on top of you. Everything just feels heavy.
What were some of the early challenges that you had?
Everybody starts somewhere. I think in the beginning, the biggest issues for me was regarding the feedback that I was getting, because
you didn't have that type of strategy. What was motivating you to do the podcast?
I was a teenager when one of my relatives went missing, and then when I was researching, Googling if there's any updates, I found this.
When a person quits a job and quits a relationship, leaves their country, how would you say your healing process was like?
I would say it was two things. People that I met, and also the fact that
you were like anti-spiritual. What does being anti-spiritual mean to you? And then what changed that?
I think when it comes to spirituality or believing in something bigger than us,
so welcome back to the Godson Pratt podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Juulia, welcome.
Thank you.
So I wrote something little. I'm going to read it. And
okay, I'm nervous already.
You listen and then you tell me what you think. So I wrote that sometimes we spend years following the script we were handed to go to school, to get a degree, find a job, and build stability. And yet, one day you wake up realizing you are living life that looks right, but doesn't feel right. My guest today knows that feeling better than anyone. She did everything society told her to do until the weight of supposed to become too heavy to carry. From burnout and unhappiness to standing on national television, transforming her body and ultimately her entire life. Within 6 months, she left her job, ended a long-term relationship, put everything she held in storage, and bought a one-way ticket to freedom. Today, she's a full-time podcaster and entrepreneur, living between Bali, Asia pretty much, and creating, healing, and inspiring others to rewrite their own stories. This is a conversation about courage, reinvention, and what happens when you decide to live life on your own terms.
Damn.
How does it sound?
I mean, it sounds, in the beginning, you were definitely taking words out of my mouth.
Really?
But that also sounds like a lot of pressure. It's like a lot of big words. But I guess ultimately it's true.
Yeah, but I think like that's what normally happens. When you live your life, it's pretty easy until somebody else start to describe what you do. Then it sounds like, wait, like, is this my life? Or, like sometimes when I tell people my story, they think like it sounds like a movie. But then when I look at it myself, I'm like, this is nothing.
It's just regular, basic.
Yeah. So once again, welcome to the Godson Pratt podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm happy to, do this episode because, like I said, even the little I found about you from research, I realized like you have a very interesting life and a story, and I'm glad to share that with our audience today. So here comes my first question.
Okay, let's go.
There you go. So when you look back now, what would you say was the first crack? So the moment you realized something in your life wasn't right.
I think this answer is very common for a lot of people.
Okay.
And mine is when I burned out.
Okay.
So I had been, like you said, living life like you're supposed to live life, get one degree, get another degree, go straight into work life. And it was just a few years into, I used to be a teacher before, right?
Okay.
So a few years into teaching, I just realized like I'm not okay anymore. Like I was completely burned out. And it's a weird moment to realize because you don't want to admit it to yourself that because it feels like a weakness.
Yeah.
Like I should be able to handle this. And then you realize you can't. So I was completely burned out. And then I talked to my boss about it. And then they kind of made me see the reality.
Right.
And I went into therapy because of that. And that's when I started realizing, like, is this actually the life that I want to be living? Like overworking. I've always been an overachiever, perfectionist. Is this what's life supposed to be about?
Yeah.
And it isn't.
So by normal society standards, you had everything that you are supposed to, have or be in society, right? So when it comes to, having a relationship, having degrees, you didn't have one but two, right? And then in terms of having stability, job-wise, you had that, So in terms of what society would say, like we're supposed to have to be happy or fulfilled, you had literally all that. So what do you think, like, what was wrong? Like, why were you not happy or fulfilled having all that?
I think having stability, having a stable life doesn't always equal peace.
Right.
Because it's not about the things like you said, if you looked at my life from the outside, it seemed like I had everything that you're supposed to have in life.
Right.
But at the same time, I all the time felt like I was meant for something more. And I don't want to say wasting my potential, but I just knew that I'm supposed to be doing something else.
Exactly.
And I think that's the main point. Like, we are all so scared of doing something else because it is scary to step outside of your comfort zone. But yeah, it doesn't always mean that you're in the right place, even if you have all the right things.
So what then made you finally say that, enough is enough?
Well, that's a long story, and it has a lot to do with what you said about being on national television.
Let's go. Tell us about it.
So I was on the TV show The Biggest Loser, and I was always very like anti when it came to this, like, okay, physical and like the psychological, spiritual, that they actually go hand in hand.
Right.
I never really believed in that. And then I went on the show and we were filming, and I was away from home, away from like my regular life for 5.5 weeks, just focusing on myself.
Right.
And then when the physical changes started happening, I realized something else is happening as well inside me. And there was one morning when we were starting filming, I was just looking in the mirror, and I kind of didn't recognize myself, not like physically, but like who I was as a person, doing all these things and living this life that I had been living.
Right.
And I knew that's not me, and I knew something has to change.
Right. So where did you film? Did you film like in Finland or? Also?
Yeah, we filmed in Vanda actually.
In Vanda, okay.
Yeah. It was a bit of a bubble because we were far away from like everything, and we weren't allowed to go to the supermarket, meet people, anything. So it was isolation.
Yeah, but prior to that, have you done any like physical exercise or something like that before?
That's the thing, because I used to play basketball when I was a kid. I used to go to the gym. I was always very sporty, but then there was this period in my life where, like I said, I wasn't taking care of myself because I was just overworking, studying, working 3 jobs at the same time, just doing too much, and I completely neglected myself. And that's when when we were filming, I realized, okay, I need to find the person who I was before, because this is not me.
Right. So like again, I think, let me backtrack a little bit, right? Because we're talking about you having a job and everything like that, and then burning out and stuff like that. Just for context, for people, like, what did even burnout in that time feel like for you? And in the initial stages, did you, even though, like you said, you talked to your boss about it, and then you saw, like, was it therapy or whatever, did you also ever feel like pressure to even not show your feelings or hide them, so to speak?
Always. I've always, like, I never wanted to rely on other people. I always wanted to, like, I can do everything by myself. I don't need anyone else.
Yeah.
Which is not true. We all need other people.
For sure.
But then this is how I describe the feeling of being burnout at the worst moment. It was like you're lying down and you feel like someone or something is lying on top of you, even though there's actually nothing.
Right.
But everything just feels heavy. And it was still, even though I was in a bad shape, I still kept going to work. I never quit going to work because, that's the kind of independent, like, oh, strong, independent woman who needs no one. Like, you still keep going. Looking back, I don't think that was maybe the right choice. But that's what it felt like.
So, I was literally, that question was a little bit personal for me, because it's like, I'm from an African background. And at a point in my own experience as well, I had, moment or situation like that where I would have, today I would have, asked for help. But in that time, I didn't, I felt the pressure of, hiding my feelings because of my experience with, coming from an African background with stigmatization. But, like I said, today is all about you. So let's get, back to you. So now at some point, before you joined like Biggest Losers, at what point did you feel like your body and your mind were not like in alignment, like you thought something was wrong? Because
it had already been a few years.
Okay.
or now actually in hindsight, probably all my life up until that point.
Okay.
Because I was always looking at other people, like, okay, what does my partner need? What do my students need? What does my boss need? Instead of actually looking in myself, like, what do I need?
Exactly.
So all my life, actually.
So now you joined the Biggest Losers. What were your expectations?
I think I went in with very realistic expectations because, like I said, I had always been exercising. I knew what you are supposed to do to like eat right and take care of yourself. It was just that at that point I didn't have the resources or the energy to do it. So I feel like for me, I just needed that little bit of a kick in your backside to get you going. So I didn't go in expecting my life to change. And this is actually a funny story because when I told my therapist that I'm going to join the show, she looked at me and she was like, Juulia, I feel like it's like you're entering a tunnel and you're going to come out of the tunnel as a completely changed person. And I told her, no, that's BS. Like, no, I'm just going to go in, I'm just going to exercise a bit more, learn how to eat right and this. And then when I actually finished filming, I was like, she was right. She knew exactly what she was saying.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because my next question was simply going to be, what was the biggest misconception you had about transformation before joining the show? But literally you just answered that, right?
Yeah.
Because I think when it comes to fitness, a lot of people, especially people who have not really dived into fitness before, they underestimate like what type of effect that, like fitness has on you. Like talk less of like the endorphins and all those type of, feel good, something that you can get just from an exercise, but a lot of people take medications for, so it's like, people really underestimate like, what fitness is really about. But so let's talk a little bit more, right? Now you join the Biggest Losers, the show is running. At what point did you start to see like, some changes in terms of even physical changes or mental changes or emotional changes? At what point did you start to see something?
Well, obviously the show, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the show to people because it's a heavy experience and how things are done there is very extreme and it's not really to build a lasting change unless you like look into yourself and the root causes of everything. But the physical changes obviously happen very quickly there because it's such an extreme change from what you're used to the new routines. So I think it was, when did we start filming? Beginning of August until end of November, I lost 25 kilos. So that's not healthy. At the same time, it's not healthy. No. So physical changes came really quickly, and I think it was the like emotional, mental changes. That for me took a little bit longer because it's something you need to mull over. It's not like a snap decision, like, okay, now I feel like this, now I feel like this, because those were big decisions that I made after. So, but I would say still within a few months, but it's a process that keeps on going. I feel like it never stops.
100%. But then again, like now you said, like in hindsight, you wouldn't necessarily recommend the show for, for people. But talk to me a little bit about whilst you were still on the show or shortly after the show, right? So with that type of experience, how did it like make you see yourself beyond your physical, going through that type of like strict regiment, and that type of big physical change? How did it change your perception about yourself, for example, like in terms of, beyond physical appearance and stuff?
I think it was, I had put myself in a certain type of box. That this is who I am, how I am. And, like, I've never been like a super fit girl. So it was just in my head, like, okay, this is who I'm always going to be. I'm always going to be a little overweight. I'm always going to be this and this. And then I realized, actually it's all about me. I make those decisions and it showed me I can be, very cliche, I can be whatever I want to be if I just put in the work. And that's when I started questioning, instead of, okay, I am what I do, like I'm a teacher, I'm this and this, it started making me question, like, am I actually those things?
So you mentioned that, like the physical changes also brought some psychological shifts, right? So what was the first major mental breakthrough that you personally experienced? Like, when did you see that this type of physical change is also having like some alignment with your mental?
It was there when we were filming at the boot camp, because it was first time in years that I was focusing only on myself and my well-being, and I realized, you know what, I'm not happy. I'm not happy in my job. I'm not really happy in my relationship. I don't want to be in this city. I don't know if I want to be in this country. I don't want to be in this body. I'm in a wrong mind state. And I was just, okay, I need to change everything when I get out of here.
Yeah. And you did.
And I did.
But those are really difficult changes to make. Like, you have to be really courageous to do that. How did you do it?
That's something that sometimes really bothers me, because the use of the word being courageous or being brave, because I heard that a lot back then when I made the big changes. Like, oh, you're so brave to leave everything behind. And I feel like it's, at that point for me, it wasn't about being brave. It was just, I had no choice. Like, I couldn't stay in that life anymore. So I had to leave it behind and go towards something new.
So where did you go?
Where did I go? In which part of my life? Like, at that point then, when I, came back from filming the show, was, a few months later, I had quit my job, became an entrepreneur.
Okay. So you still had your job before you went to do the filming and stuff like that, right? Okay. So you quit your job.
Yeah, I quit my job, then broke up with my long-term partner, finally resigned my lease, put my stuff in a storage unit, and bought a one-way ticket to Spain and said, let's see where life takes me.
So you went to Spain first?
I went to Spain first.
When it comes to leaving a job, there's a lot of people that is very scary to leave a job, because even nowadays, like with the job market,
of course,
it's like very difficult to get like a new job and stuff like that. And career changes and shift, they are also like one of the biggest things that a lot of people can deal with, mostly because we associate ourselves with what we do, right? So if tomorrow I quit my job and then all of a sudden I don't have a new job, most people will get really depressed, because now they don't even have a meaning to life. Then number two is like relationship. Getting out of relationship is one of the most difficult thing for most people, and so most people will just stay in a relationship unhappy, but they will still just do that rather than leaving. You didn't just leave your job, you left your job, your relationship, and your country. Literally everything that kind of like gives comfort. Like, what was going through your mind? Like, what were the conversations like with your boss, with your partner? Like, was it like just like this, or was it like process,
It took probably a few months for me to, come to that conclusion, but things happened very quickly. And this is also what I think, because now, since then, I've become a little bit of this like universe girly. I believe there's something bigger there that's taking care of us.
Right.
So I feel like when you stop entertaining confusion or things that don't make you happy, and you make that first choice, it's like a big snowball that starts rolling.
Right.
One decision leads to another door opens, and it just keeps on going.
Exactly.
So then for me it was, okay, I'm not happy in my relationship, I need to get out of this. And once I made that decision, then suddenly I got contacted in relation to my podcast. Hey, you want to become an entrepreneur, this and this. So the ball just started rolling. And I realized, okay, I made one decision, good things came out of it. I'm sure if I make another, more good things will come.
100%. I think like that is how we should all strive to live life. It's not that easy. But now you mentioned your podcast, right?
Yeah.
When did you start your podcast?
It's going to be 5 years soon, December 2020.
Okay. So did you start your podcast while you were still working, or did you start the podcast after you quit your job and everything?
I was still working.
Okay.
And that was, I can now looking back, I don't know how I did it. Because I was teacher in high school, teaching 3 different languages.
Right.
And then, having to plan all those classes, all this. And then on top of that, I decided, let's do a podcast, a weekly podcast that requires a lot of research. And it was a crazy time, but I did that all at the same time.
So you had a job, you had your relationship, and then you did the podcast.
Yes.
Okay. When you quit everything, why didn't you quit the podcast as well?
I feel like podcast was kind of one of the things that kept me going, because I've always enjoyed storytelling and being creative. So it was something that kept me motivated.
Right. The reason why I asked that is like, today Juulia is like traveling around the world pretty much, you can literally wake up when you want, go to sleep when you want, and all you have to do is to turn in your podcast episode. So literally, it's like now, from the outside looking in, you are living the life, or you are living the dream, because obviously, like, we all want that type of lifestyle where you just kind of like travel around the world. Come to think of it, right, like from the outside looking in, most people, if they just, follow what you do, like, traveling around the world and, living the life, I think that's very like attractive to a lot of people. But then I think from what you're saying, and then the little that I found about you from research, it wasn't easy at all. And so, this is something that you started to do when you were pretty much like having all those struggles, and then you managed to continue to do it. And now it's like, it's giving you that type of freedom that you always wanted. Because I'm thinking, like, when you said like enough is enough, and then you bought that, ticket, the idea is to be free. Now you are free. So tell us a little bit about the podcast. What were some of the early challenges that you had, and how did you keep on going, for all those people who also maybe are thinking of starting podcasts and stuff?
In the beginning, obviously everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Now when I listen back to my first episode, I literally want to facepalm myself. I'm like, how did I ever put this out for people to listen to? But I think in the beginning, the biggest issues for me was regarding the feedback that I was getting, because people, especially in social media, being anonymous, they can be very harsh with their words. And I had always been a people pleaser before in my life. And then to have that kind of comments, I really needed to like grow a thick skin to make it through that. And then later on, this is what I always say, when a hobby becomes your job, it becomes work.
Right.
So then something that might have been kind of your outlet before, when, all the stress leaves your body, when you're doing that, you get into flow. It just wasn't that anymore at some point, because you have deadlines, you have numbers you need to reach and all this. But then at the same time, if I put it like on a scale, what it gives me, the freedom, so being able to be creative, is definitely worth it.
Right. So how did you start your podcast? I mean, I'm asking for, because I'm sure like some people in the audience right now, are probably thinking of starting podcasts. I've literally, I started my podcast like a little over 4 years ago. And sometimes people ask me like, they want to start podcasts, but they don't know how, and it's like, when they see you like doing podcasts with all the right equipment, they are always thinking like, they need all those equipments to start, right? But then if I tell you how I started, it's like almost ridiculous,
Yep.
So it's always hard for me to kind of like explain to people that, start where you are with what you have, right? But obviously now you are like on one of the biggest, podcast platforms in Europe, which is also like a feat for, not most people, but you did it. So can you take us a little back to when you started your podcast? How did you start? Did you start with big production, or how did you start?
Not at all. It was December. So my boyfriend back then, he bought me this very cheap microphone as a gift. And I was like, okay, I'll start with this. And then obviously I had been listening to true crime podcast before. I kind of knew what it's about.
Right.
And then I started writing my first script. I'm like, okay, the script is ready. And then I realized, okay, this is not enough at all. But what I had is just the really bad microphone. And then just downloaded a free editing program and that's it. That's what I started with. And that's also where when I look back, I'm like, okay, I've come a long way. But at the same time, because it was a very snap decision. I think I was talking to a friend at a party a week before I started my podcast. And I was saying, I've been thinking about this. Should I do it? And they were like, do it, go for it. Week later, I published my first episode. So this is the message, like, don't wait for the right moment. Don't wait for permission. You don't need all that equipment. Like, just start and then it's going to evolve and get better with time.
So when you published your first episode, what was the response?
The response was amazing.
Really?
And that's why I was so surprised. Because now looking back, I'm like, okay, I've come a long way. Like, I would never put that kind of material out there anymore. But times were different. But yeah, it was very quickly it gained an audience, and I was really surprised. I was not expecting that at all, because I thought this is just going to be something I do on the side as a hobby. I didn't think I could ever monetize it. That wasn't in my mind.
Okay. So like the first audience that you had, was it like people that you knew, or was it like, did you publish on, like, which platform did you initially use to publish?
I published through the RSS feed, which basically goes to Spotify, Apple Music, all the open
that's where you
platforms.
Started.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think that's also like one of the challenges that a lot of people have with podcasts, is like, or not even podcasts, so to speak, but with content creation generally, because, you know, like when you start, usually you don't have an audience, you know, and then it's like sometimes you have 1 view or 5 views or 10, and then, you know, most people just quit because the response is not there. But luckily you got, you know, good response from the onset.
But it's also, the timing was really important, because obviously nowadays the podcast scene is much bigger. Is saturated, exactly. So now for someone to start from zero, it's much harder to gain that kind of audience, because there's so much on offer.
Right.
So timing was definitely on my side when I started.
So anyway, like a little bit on your podcast, right? So when you started, there was no strategy, literally.
Zero.
So why did you do it? Like nowadays, a lot of people want to do podcasts because they want to monetize it, or they want to turn it into like a profession. But you didn't have that type of strategy. So what was motivating you to do the podcast?
So obviously the podcast is true crime podcast.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had always, since I was a kid, been really interested in. And then I was a teenager when one of my relatives went missing. And then when I was researching, like, you know, Googling if there's any updates, if they have found him or something, I found this true crime discussion forum, and my eyes just opened. I was like, okay, there are other people in the world like me who are interested in this. So then when podcasts in Finland started popping up, true crime podcasts, they were all dealing with these cases that are already really well known.
Right.
And I was like, I already know this, like I need something new. And then I felt like it wasn't happening. So then I thought, okay, why don't I do it myself? I'm sure there's other people out there like me who want that kind of content. So it became from like a personal need even. So it wasn't, at that point, like I said, I had no strategy, no ideas of trying to monetize it or everything. So yeah.
But that's still pretty genius though, because it's like, you know, like they say, if you want to succeed in life, find a problem and solve it. And if you can find a problem and solve it, then it's like, you know, you're just gonna succeed. And the thing is, like, you saw a void, you know, with what was missing, and then you decide like, okay, you're gonna be there. And then it's like, literally, then there's no competition, because there's not many people really, you know, like dialing down in that specific niche. So then you stand out. Okay.
Also, I have to say with this, like you said, there's a lot of people, they want to start creating content, podcasts, whatever. And they have this idea in the back of their heads, like, I want to monetize this. And I think that is a problem in many cases, because then your heart's not really in it. Because when you start doing something like that, it needs to be something that you're interested in 100%. Or you feel passionate about, because 100%. Otherwise, when the money is not coming in, you just give up.
Right. On that note, right, how long did you do it on yourself, like by yourself, before eventually you got even your first sponsorship or any type of deal? How long did it take?
I think my first ad that I had on my podcast that I got paid for was about 6 months in.
Okay.
And then it was 1 year of doing the podcast when it became my full-time job.
Okay.
I was very lucky.
So what was the first check like? Like your first ad, you know, how much money did you make?
I can't speak on that.
Yeah, but like a range, you know, like a couple hundreds.
I mean, let's say something between 500 and 1,000.
Okay, but that's like good for like a first check, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you were not, like, I wasn't expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
So it was just like, oh, I just made some money off of this thing that I started in my bedroom. Amazing.
Right. So like you do it for like a year. Now you have some checks coming in from ads and, you know, whatever sponsorship, and then you go full time into podcasting. But what was the transition like? Did you first quit your job and then you transition fully, or you kind of like, you know, started getting the checks and then you figure out like, okay, this is like a safe zone because now I can really live on this, so then I can quit my job?
I was very lucky with my entrepreneur story because it was about 10 months after I started the podcast, I got contacted by a media house here in Finland.
Right.
I was still working as a teacher.
Okay.
And then they made an offer. So it was obviously like a no-brainer for me because I already had that safety net to fall on if I quit my job.
Right. So if you would be advising somebody today who want to start a podcast and they are still in their job, but literally they are like burnt out and they are not like excited about their job anymore, but they are thinking to transition into doing a podcast and hopefully monetize it, what advice would you give them? Would you tell them to just go all in on the podcast, or would you just tell them to kind of like, stay on their job and then keep testing the passion project until it's like safe to kind of like,
Depends on the person. I wouldn't give the same advice to everybody.
Right.
Personally, I feel like if I would now, in the mindset that I'm now, if I would now lose my job, I feel like it would light a fire under me.
Yeah.
And it would make me think, okay, I don't have this stability anymore. I need to go even harder on this one to make it work.
Right.
But that's not, it doesn't work like that for everybody.
Right. Okay, anyway, let's go back a little bit again, right? So you go to Spain. That was your first, like destination when you decide to leave Finland. Why Spain?
I was a Spanish teacher before.
Right.
So it was like a safe space for me. Had been there many times before.
Okay.
Etc. But yeah, I bought a one-way ticket, but then I returned already after 1 month.
Okay.
And
why is that?
It was some work issues first, then it became some health issues, some surgeries, operations, but I still had that kind of fire all the time inside me. Like my trip was cut short, kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kept calling me like, okay, I need to leave. I need to go abroad again.
Right. So then you go to Asia?
Yes.
Okay.
So I booked. I was originally supposed to go for a 1 month holiday.
Okay.
In February 2024.
Yeah.
And then that 1 month turned into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and basically I ended up living there for 1.5 years.
Right. So Bali.
Yeah. Bali was my base. Yeah.
Right. Why Bali?
So this is where the universe girly comes in, because I had been thinking, okay, I want to go somewhere for longer term, but I'm not sure where.
Okay.
And then Bali just kept popping up everywhere.
Right.
Like I met a person, they had just come from there, another one was going there, saw a movie that was based in Bali that I didn't know, and I was like, okay, there's some meaning behind this.
Right. But at that point, have you ever been to Bali, or have you ever thought about Asia, like all in all?
That was my first time outside of Europe.
Okay.
And Asia had never been of any interest to me. And yeah.
That's like a big jump, though.
It was a big jump.
Right. So now you are in Bali. Obviously, you are living the dream. But I would think like all this while you are still on your healing journey, so to speak, right? So aside of having your podcast, which is like your outlet, like your mission, your purpose, and everything else, what are other things that helped you with your like healing journey? Because obviously it's not like when a person quits a job and quits a relationship and leave their country, it might sound like easy to do, but then it's not, because you like for every new change you have to kind of like deal with it, so for you, how would you say like your healing process was like what are other things that you did aside of the podcast?
It was, I would say it was two things, and it wasn't even two things that I did. I don't think do is the right word to use there. It was people that I met there that now I was so lucky. I met people, now I can call them my brothers and sisters.
Right.
And also the fact that I was so far away from everything that was familiar to me. And also these people that I met, they met the person that I am now. They didn't have any preconceived ideas of who I am, because obviously your family or long-term friends, they have known you for such a long time. They have an idea in your head about who you are. And for me, like the Biggest Loser and everything that I went through after that, it changed me so fundamentally that I think those ideas of me didn't match the person I was anymore. Right. And meeting the new people, they saw me just as I was at that point, and that's what really helped me in my journey.
Right. So anyway, in Bali, what would your daily routines be like?
There was no routine.
But
That's
you
the
did
thing.
something every day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I found kickboxing in Bali.
Okay.
Fell in love with kickboxing. Obviously, going to the beach, sunsets, just being in the nature. Driving around with a scooter. I had never driven a scooter before.
Okay.
The freedom of just jumping on one and going somewhere,
Yeah.
and just
You
new
didn't-
experiences.
You didn't drive a scooter in Finland as a teenager?
Never.
Okay,
No,
that's
I was
interesting.
way too scared.
Yeah. But anyway, like the thing is like after Biggest Loser, right? Like we said, that experience was pretty much intense. But now you are in Bali, where literally you have the beach and you have the nice food and stuff like that. Why kickboxing?
That is a great question. I did a little bit of boxing in Finland before,
Okay.
and then I just wanted to try new things. I went to the kickboxing class and I realized this is such a good stress release for me.
Right.
And that's kind of what kept me going back to the class.
Okay. So how is your routine nowadays? Are you currently doing any type of sports, exercise, or physical activity? And do you find it like beneficial in any ways?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm still going to boxing class, kickboxing class, here, going to the gym. And yeah, it's been a little bit of a struggle to get back to the routines after living such an irregular lifestyle out there in Asia. But it's kind of like a circle. Like when you start exercising, when you start doing things that are good for you, you want to keep doing more.
Right.
And it just goes round and round again.
Right. So you said, like earlier on, you said that, sometimes when you start doing something that you are passionate about as a hobby, and then it turns into something that you do for a work, sometimes some people might lose that, passion and zeal for it. Like, so now that when you used to have your job as a teacher, you were doing the podcast, as a hobby or like a passion project, right? And now when you do it like a full time, how, like, has it become like a job or a work for you, or how have you managed to cope to still keep that like passion and purpose and mission driven? Like, how have you managed to keep that alive?
I always cannot. Sometimes I have absolutely zero motivation.
Right.
But I think it comes and it goes. So in those moments when I don't have the motivation, it's your your discipline, staying consistent. I think that applies to a lot of things in life. Like there are days when we don't want to get up and go to the gym, but know you're going to feel better after you do.
Yeah.
So that's when it comes to something as creative as what I do, you're going to have days when you feel like a writer's block or it's just not coming out.
Yeah.
But you just kind of have to keep pushing. So that's the message.
Right. So if I would ask you like discipline or motivation, which one would you choose?
Ooh, discipline or motivation?
Yeah.
Obviously, ideally motivation, because it's more fun, because it kind of comes from inside you.
Yeah.
But discipline in the end is what gets the job done. It might be boring and mundane, but...
Yeah. So, I have this question. I want to, let's see how this sounds, because...
Your face is scaring me. You seem way too excited about this question.
So I think like somewhere somewhere during research, you mentioned something that, you were once like anti-spiritual. What does that mean? And then like, what changed that, And the reason I'm asking this question is like, I'm a very spiritual person. So there was a point where I also needed like, some change in my life. And then I thought like, let me first like sort like a spiritual experience. So I went to Asia as well, but I went to Cambodia, to the monastery, because that was like a spiritual shift for me coming from a Christian background, But it was easy for me because I already had that spiritual belief. I just didn't believe in many different doctrines, so to speak. So when I went to Asia, to the monastery, it was like a spiritual shift for me. Obviously, from there, I learned a lot of different things that also kind of like supported, to a great extent, like who I am now, right? But literally, you were like anti-spiritual, but you went to Asia anyway. So what does being anti-spiritual mean to you? And then what changed that?
I think all of this, like when it comes to spirituality or believing in something bigger than us, why I didn't feel that way before was because of this perfectionist overachiever in me who didn't want to rely on anyone else.
Right,
Because I felt that if I rely on something bigger than us is wrong, because I should be able to fix all my issues myself and be on top of everything that I do. And that's also, I was very strict and harsh always on myself.
Okay.
And then, like I said, there's physical changes, emotional changes, all this started happening. I realized, okay, you can actually rely on other people. And that kind of opened the door for me regarding maybe I can put my worries onto something else, higher being, whatever it is for other people as well. And it's very comforting knowing that you can just take something that's been on your mind, that's been worrying you, and just leave it in someone else's hands.
Right. But was it like, before you had that kind of like switch, did you kind of like, did you have any particular experience or meeting with one person or something that kind of like opened your eyes to spirituality, or to just give it a chance? Like,
to be honest, no. I feel like I was so closed off to that before that if somebody had, told me something regarding it or started speak, I would be like, no, that's nonsense. Like, no, it doesn't really have anything to do with me. I was very, very close before that.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned that, you've always been that type of person at some point in your life, at least, that you used to be more like a people pleaser, so to speak. So now, compared to a few years ago, how would you describe like your relationship with yourself in a way? Like, are you more like self-focused now, or how is?
Has changed a lot. And there is this word in Finnish language called itserakas, which means self and loved one or love. And that word in Finnish language has such a negative connotation. If someone calls you that, it's you're self-absorbed, you don't think of anybody else. Whereas I think of it self-love, like you need to put yourself first in many situations. And that way my kind of image of myself has changed completely. I used to, if I would post something on social media and I would be like, oh, that's cringe, I wouldn't do it. And now it's just like, you know what, I have one life, just like do it. And it's the same with people who want to start content creation. At first, it's people are going to look at you like, what is he doing? And then he grows into something bigger and they're like, oh, okay, there was something behind that. So yeah, absolutely has changed.
But do you have any type of like daily, rituals or practices that kind of like keep you aligned, or do you just like figure it out, you go with the flow pretty much?
I have I have books I read before every single night before I go to bed. These sort of like, I don't know what the like self-helps, improvement, these kinds of books.
Right.
Read a little bit, try to become a better person. I do some meditations, and those are kind of things that ground me. Right. That keep my day in check.
Right. Okay. Now I'm gonna take you a little bit back to Bali again, because it's like the thought of Bali always like excite me, and also excites like most people, you know. So I would say like, that chapter in your life was obviously, like you said, you were supposed to go there for a month, and then the month became almost like a year and a half, right? That's like a long time. So that chapter of Bali, what did that experience teach you? Like, what lessons did you learn from that? And like,
so many. Mostly about myself. Like I said, when you step outside of your regular old life and you throw yourself into a completely new surrounding, new people. For example, I always thought of myself as a very introverted person. I mean, we're in Finland, we like to keep our distance and all this. And then I went there and I realized, okay, that's not actually true. I feel like it might be the environment around me that's making me be that way. Right. So it brought up new personality traits in me, for sure. Also, I think Bali is a very beautiful place culturally and spiritually. And it has it's very rich in those. So it also made me look more deep into that side of myself. and helped me on my healing journey.
Right.
Yeah, but too many to list.
Go for it.
No, I can't even think of everything right now.
Yeah.
But just to give you a little taste.
But I think like that's really like important thing that you said, that because they say like the people that we surround ourselves with, they have a lot of effect on who we become and stuff. Absolutely. Like that, right? And like clearly for you, the being surrounded by like-minded people in Bali definitely helped change your energy and outlook, right? But just again, if you can touch a little bit on that, what are some of the things that the community or the people around you, what are some of the things that they did that made you shift even positively in terms of like self outlook or energy wise? Like what are some of the things? Was it like things they said to you, or things that you saw them do? So if it's like things they said to you, what are some of the things? And then if it's like things you saw them do that you also started to do, then what are some of the things?
I think it was mostly just about the fact that I felt seen by the people,
right.
And them telling me how they saw me, which made me think, okay, I've never looked at myself that way, but they are seeing these traits and these characteristics in me.
Right.
Maybe that's true. Maybe that's how I am, and those were positive things.
Right.
So I think that for me was the biggest thing.
Sure. So let's talk about freedom, right? I think Bali sounds like a lot of freedom, but when you personally hear the word freedom, like what is the first thing that comes into your mind, and what does freedom really mean to you now?
Freedom for me is being able to design my own life.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Like you said before, I can wake up whenever I want to and work whenever I want from where I want. That is absolutely a big part of it. Yeah. But at the same time, freedom for me means with my work, for example, that I'm doing something that I've chosen to do that means something to me, that I can be creative doing it. Those are the things that mean a lot to me. I don't want to anymore. That's the thing also that changed. I never in my life thought I would become an entrepreneur. Never. It just kind of happened by accident. Right. But now that it's happened, I feel like I can never go back to working for someone else ever again. Right. I want to be doing things for myself, for my future.
100%. But then again, like from the outside looking in, you're living the life. I mean, from a lot of people's perspective, right? But that also comes with like certain challenges as well. So my question is like, what has been the hardest part of living the dream life that people don't often see?
I would say it can be very uncertain and also lonely. Okay. Coming from a job profession like a teacher where I'm constantly surrounded by people, I have a team around me, and then going from working from home by myself was a big change. Right. And then at the same time, I am responsible for how well I do, how well my podcast does. 100%. If I'm not putting in the work, I won't have bread on the table. Right. So for some people who are at a job where it doesn't really matter, you just show up and do something, that's enough. Right. But for me, it isn't. And I have to all the time worry about, am I hitting the numbers? Am I performing? Is my podcast performing well enough that I'm going to have a job tomorrow, basically. Right. That uncertainty. But at the same time, it makes me want to work harder and want to push harder. So it's a good thing. Right.
So how would you say like you are able to balance, ambition and peace, because obviously, chasing growth comes with a lot of discipline, hard work, and like you said, loneliness. So how do you yourself like personally keep the checks and balances to make sure like, in between ambition and peace, you have some balance in between?
It's a learning process. There's a learning curve, definitely. Yeah. And for example, when I was in Bali, I can say I was definitely having more peace than ambition. And now when I'm back in Finland, I'm having more ambition than peace. But at the same time, ambition can also bring peace.
100%.
But I feel like I still haven't fully figured it out, that they are all the time in balance. It comes and goes. Yeah. But Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. Ask me this question again in 2 years,
Yeah.
and then maybe I have a better answer.
Or maybe in 5.
Maybe in 5. Who knows?
So we give you a lot of time to go through all the transition, But I want to ask this question on behalf of probably even myself or on a lot of people who might feel stuck, or they are probably in a position right now that they don't really feel fulfilled in any way. So if you would say a few words to them, what would those be?
I feel like we've covered a lot of that already, but I'd say what we said before, stability doesn't always mean peace. Actually, change can bring you clarity. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for anybody to give you permission. Just you yourself know what works for you and what you want to do. So just kind of trying to get rid of all the outside distractions to really hone down on what is the one thing you want to do, and then just go for it. Because once you do something, the ball will start rolling.
100%. And I have 3 more questions for you.
All
but
right.
This one is, I want to be a fly on the wall, and I want to hear a conversation. And this conversation is going to be between Juulia now and the Juulia that you used to be.
Wow.
So if you have the opportunity or possibility to speak to the Juulia that you used to be, what would you say to them?
That is deep.
Let's go.
That's deep. That would take... there's so many things I could say. I would tell her to stop being so worried about what other people think. I would tell her to never forget that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. And the way life is supposed to go is not for everybody. And if at any moment you feel like you are making your life choices to please other people, that's when you know you're on the wrong path and you need to choose a different path.
That's beautiful.
This is something I'm going to be thinking later on today, and that's going to make me emotional. You just made me cry today, later on today. So thank you. It's going to come later.
Okay. And one of my last questions, Juulia, to you is, this has been really amazing and incredible. When you were saying that, I was almost going to...
No, okay.
Because for the first time, it felt like the room got really quiet.
Yeah.
But, that was like a really beautiful, and, I will watch that, and I hope like other people, because that's like a message to all of us, because, sometimes the struggle is real, because when you see a vision, the distance between where you are now and the vision is quite a long term. And for some people that could be 10 years, like luckily for you, it was like 6 months to a year, and that's like a lot of loneliness, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of disbelief and stuff like that. But, sometimes the only thing that keeps us going is hearing, like comforting messages from, people like you who are obviously on the journey and on the job, So, thank you very much for sharing that.
I want to say something to that.
Let's go.
It might, like you said, the difference between where we are now and where we want to be, the vision, it might take a long time.
Right.
And I think this applies to most of the people on this planet. I can say it for myself. I'm not where I want to be.
For sure.
But at least I'm also not where I was 2 years ago.
Exactly.
And if the person I was 2 years ago would see where I'm now, they will be like,
wow,
damn.
You did it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's those small steps that you take towards that vision that eventually you're going to get there.
100%. So Juulia, if I ask you that, if you would describe yourself now in one word, what would the word be? I have a word that I can use to describe you, but let's hear what you have to say.
Are you going to tell me what the word is?
Tell you, yeah.
One word is difficult.
Okay, 3 words.
I'm going to go for one. You gave me a task, so I'm going to go for it.
Let's go.
I'm going to say incomplete.
Incomplete. Wow. Explain. Why incomplete?
Because I I feel like, for example, healing. I don't think there is such a word as healed.
Right, me neither.
You are always on the journey. And I think incomplete, it doesn't mean I'm lacking something.
Right.
It just means I'm going towards something.
100%.
I already have something built and I'm still going to build more.
100%.
So not a negative word at all.
Yeah. So you were saying about, balancing between chasing the ambition, but also like taking time to reflect on the small wins, because obviously if you just keep chasing and chasing, then you end up in that type of like rabbit hole, that, I think at some point you don't even know what you are chasing anymore. But if you can just take those little moments and, also like enjoy, the small wins, then, those are beneficial as well. Balance, yeah. So this has been really great and interesting episode. The last thing that I want you to do for our audience as a bonus, because you said that, you have been reading some books, whilst kind of like, going through this journey, which I believe you still are on. And I always like to recommend some books to my audience, because I always say like one of the things that helped me the most, aside of exercising and, like nutrition and stuff like that, reading was also like one of the things, So I always like to know a little bit about what type of books people are reading, so I can recommend to my audience, and then hopefully somebody can also get like some inspiration from some of the books. So what are some of the top 3 books that you can share with our audience that you think like they should read?
There's actually the one that I'm reading right now, which is called the Let Them Theory.
Okay.
Has been amazing. Atomic Habits
right
is another one. I think very classic one.
Yeah.
And then 1,000 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think.
Okay, I never heard that one before, so I will check it out too.
Yeah. Good. So the other 2 you already knew?
Pretty much, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So what was the word? You told me you're going to tell me your word.
Right. So my word was resilience.
Okay.
Yeah, resilience. The reason why the word resilience comes in mind is because, pretty much we all are on a journey, and then I'm from a Christian background, so there's one of my favorite verses says that, I'm not even going to put it in terms of a verse, but I'm just going to put it in a way that I can explain it, for this point. It's like God doesn't give anybody anything without testing them. And how hard he tests you determines how big he blesses you. And the thing is like, think about God testing you. That's a hell of a test. Like if I would be testing you already, that's difficult. Like you are a teacher, when you're testing your student, it's already difficult for them, already. Think about God testing you, and God is saying, I'm going to bless you, but I'm going to test you. And how much I'm going to test you will determine the price.
Right.
So it's like, it's not an easy test, it's not an easy journey. And so to be able to keep coming back, keep getting hit, hit after hit, and keep coming back, because you have seen a vision that no one else has seen. And you believe and trust that vision so much. And now God is testing to see if you are worth that vision. Like you have to be resilient. And from your story, I think like you have that resiliency. That's why you have been able to come out, now living the dream, hopefully living the dream, coming out of like relationships, jobs that didn't fulfill you and all that, traveling around the world, finding, your passion and stuff like that. And now you have something that it's like not just for you, but also for the thousands that listen to your podcast. It's like an entertainment for them. I think you have to be really resilient. So
thank you. I take those words to heart.
For sure.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Juulia, for taking the time off of your schedule to do this interview. I really appreciate, and hopefully we wish you luck with your future projects and your podcast as well. If some people from the audience want to check out your podcast, we can put a link in the description, if that is okay for your management. And then hopefully we will do it again in 5 years. 2 or 5 years. 2 years. Then, let's see how Juulia is doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, that's your camera. You can say goodbye to the audience. Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
All right. And thank you all for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, Juulia.
Thank you. you.
It was nice to have you. Really
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.